My name is Drew Callahan, and I thought I knew my wife. 38 years old, project manager at Morrison Custom Cars, brown eyes that supposedly made me ruggedly handsome, according to Chelsea on our third date 7 years ago. We lived in Meadowbrook Heights, one of those affluent suburbs where everyone knows everyone's business and pretends they don't gossip, while doing exactly that on neighborhood Facebook groups. Chelsea and I had what looked like the perfect marriage from the outside. She was an HR consultant, perfectly manicured, always camera ready for her Instagram posts about our blessed life. I was the guy who fixed classic cars and made decent money doing it. We were trying for a baby through IVF after 2 years of unsuccessful attempts naturally. That Tuesday morning in October started like any other. I was drinking coffee at our granite kitchen island, scrolling through work emails about a 1967 Camaro restoration, when Chelsea sat down across from me with that look. You know the one, when your spouse has something important to discuss, and they're trying to figure out how to bring it up. Drew, honey, I've been thinking about the baby, she said, fidgeting with her wedding ring. Yeah? What about it? I took another sip of coffee, not really paying attention. Well, you know how we both have brown eyes? I looked up from my phone. Last time I checked, yeah, why? Chelsea laughed nervously, tucking a strand of her perfectly highlighted blonde hair behind her ear. I was just thinking, wouldn't it be amazing if our baby had blue eyes? They're so captivating, so striking. I chuckled. Babe, that's not really how genetics works. We both have brown eyes. The baby's going to have brown eyes too, most likely. But what if? She paused, her voice getting smaller. What if there was a way? Was aid you? Something in her tone made me put down my phone completely. Chelsea, what are you talking about? She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. Then she looked up at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Part guilt, part defiance, part desperation. I swapped your sample at the IVF clinic with my ex's. The words hung in the air like smoke. I felt my coffee cup freeze halfway to my lips. I'm sorry, what? Ryan's sample. I swapped yours with his. 2 weeks ago, during the retrieval. I wanted the baby to have blue eyes like his. My mind went completely blank for a second. Then it started racing. Ryan Morrison, her ex-boyfriend from college. The guy who owned that CrossFit gym downtown. Blue eyes, cocky smile. The kind of guy who called everyone bro, unironically. You swapped my sample. I set my coffee cup down very carefully. With your ex-boyfriend's sample. Drew, please don't be angry. I know it sounds crazy, but I've been thinking about this for months. Blue eyes are so beautiful, and I just thought, how? I interrupted. How exactly did you accomplish this medical fraud? She flinched at the word fraud. I coordinated with Ryan. He went to the clinic the same day as you, and I paid one of the technicians, Rachel, to make the switch. It wasn't that much money, just $5,000. $5,000. To commit medical fraud, with her ex-boyfriend, for blue eyes. I stared at her for what felt like an eternity. She was looking at me with this hopeful expression, like maybe I'd understand. Like maybe I'd think this was romantic instead of completely insane. The implantation is scheduled for Friday, she continued when I didn't respond. In 3 days. Drew, say something. I took a deep breath. My voice, when it came out, was eerily calm. Interesting choice. Those 2 words seemed to deflate her tension. She actually smiled a little, relief washing over her face. So you're okay with it? I was so worried you'd be upset. I need to process this, I said, standing up. Why don't you go take your shower? We can talk more later. Okay. She practically bounced up from her chair, clearly thinking the hard part was over. I love you, Drew. This is going to be amazing. Our beautiful blue-eyed baby. She kissed my cheek and headed upstairs. I heard the bathroom door close, then the shower start running. I picked up my phone. First, I called the clinic. Dr. Samira Patel, the director, answered on the 3rd ring. Dr. Patel, this is Drew Callahan. I need to report medical fraud involving my wife's IVF cycle. Mr. Callahan, what kind of fraud? My wife just confessed to paying a technician named Rachel to swap my sperm sample with another man's sample. She wants to implant her ex-boyfriend's sample instead of mine. There was dead silence on the other end. Then, Mr. Callahan, this is an extremely serious allegation. Can you provide details? I gave her everything. Chelsea's full name, appointment dates, the technician's name, the exact nature of the swap. Dr. Patel's voice got colder with each detail. We will launch an immediate investigation. Thank you for reporting this. Next, I opened my phone's voice memo app and started a new recording. Then I called Chelsea upstairs. Hey babe, can you come down for a second? I have a question about the baby thing. She came down in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel, still glowing from her confession high. What's up? Can you just walk me through the whole thing again? The sample swap. I want to make sure I understand. And she did. She told me everything, how she'd contacted Ryan 3 months ago, how they'd planned it together, how she'd researched which technician would be most likely to take a bribe, how they'd coordinated their clinic visits, how excited Ryan was to help create a beautiful blue-eyed baby, how she'd transferred $5,000 from our joint savings account to pay Rachel. I recorded every word. When she finished, I stopped the recording and immediately emailed it to Julia Morrison, Ryan's wife. I'd found her email address on the gym's website, where she was listed as the business manager. The email was simple. Julia, I think you need to hear this. My wife and your husband have been planning something behind our backs. Drew Callahan. Then I went upstairs and started packing. Chelsea came out of the bathroom 20 minutes later to find me loading clothes into a suitcase. Drew, what are you doing? Packing. Packing for what? Her voice had a tremor in it now. I turned to face her. I called Dr. Patel and reported the medical fraud. I also sent a recording of your confession to Julia Morrison. The color drained from her face. You did what? I reported a crime, Chelsea, which is what any reasonable person would do when their spouse confesses to medical fraud. Drew, you can't do this. You can't destroy our marriage over this. No, I didn't destroy our marriage. You did. When you decided to have another man's baby and lie to me about it. My phone rang. Dr. Patel. Mr. Callahan, we've conducted a preliminary investigation. We're canceling your wife's IVF cycle immediately and refunding your money. Mrs. Callahan is being permanently blacklisted from our clinic. We're also filing a criminal complaint with the police. Chelsea was close enough to hear every word. She started shaking her head frantically, mouthing, "No, no, no." Additionally, Dr. Patel continued, we've terminated the technician involved, and we're sharing this information with the National Fertility Clinic database. Your wife will not be able to access IVF services anywhere in the United States. Thank you, Dr. Patel. I appreciate your quick action. I hung up. Chelsea was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Drew, please, we can fix this. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. Is this Drew Callahan? Yes. This is Julia Morrison. I just listened to your email. Is this real? Did my husband really do this? I'm afraid so. My wife just confessed the whole thing to me this morning. That son of a bitch. Julia's voice was shaking with rage. I'm 6 months pregnant with our second child, and he's out there making babies with his ex-girlfriend? I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Don't be sorry. Thank you for telling me. I'm confronting him right now. She hung up. Chelsea was now sitting on the bed, crying. Drew, please don't leave. We can work through this. Work through what, exactly? Work through the fact that you committed a felony? Work through the fact that you were planning to lie to me for the rest of our lives about who fathered our child? Work through the fact that you stole $5,000 from our savings account. It wasn't stealing. It was our money. To commit fraud with your ex-boyfriend. I zipped up my suitcase. I'm staying at the Marriott downtown until I can find an apartment. My lawyer will be in touch. Your lawyer? Drew, you can't be serious about divorce. Chelsea, you tried to trick me into raising another man's child. What exactly did you think was going to happen when I found out? You weren't supposed to find out. The honesty of that statement hit me like a slap. She really thought she was going to get away with it. She really thought I was that stupid. I picked up my suitcase and headed for the door. Behind me, Chelsea was sobbing, but I didn't look back. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Julia Morrison. Can we meet? I think we should talk. I texted back. Absolutely. Tomorrow morning? Coffee shop on Main Street? See you at 9 a.m. As I drove away from the house I'd called home for 5 years, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I could breathe. The next morning, I met Julia Morrison at Grind Coffee on Main Street. I recognized her immediately from the gym's website photos, but she looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, her brown hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, 6 months pregnant, and dealing with her husband's betrayal. Drew? She stood up from a corner table. Julia, thank you for meeting me. We shook hands and I sat down across from her. She'd already ordered coffee for both of us. So, she said without preamble, my husband confirmed everything, the whole sick plan. He actually seemed proud of it at first, until I told him I was filing for divorce. How are you holding up? She laughed bitterly. I'm pregnant. I just found out my husband is a lying cheater, and I'm about to be a single mother of 2. How do you think I'm holding up? I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm grateful you told me. Better to know now than after the baby's born. She took a sip of her coffee. What's your plan? Divorce, obviously. Beyond that, I'm not sure. Well, I have some ideas. Something in her tone made me look up sharply. Julia Morrison had steel in her eyes. Ryan thinks he's going to come out of this unscathed. He actually told me last night that what he did was romantic and helping an old friend. He doesn't seem to understand that he's facing criminal charges for medical fraud. The police are involved? As of this morning, yes. Dr. Patel filed a complaint. They'll probably want to interview both of us. I nodded. What kind of ideas did you have? Julia leaned forward. Ryan's gym is his whole life, his identity, his income, everything. It's also built on his reputation as this trustworthy fitness guru who helps families get healthy together. What do you think happens to that reputation when people find out he's been secretly fathering children behind his pregnant wife's back? I imagine it takes a hit, more than a hit. I manage the business side of things, remember? I know exactly how fragile his client base is. Most of our members are young families, married couples, people who trust Ryan with their health, their bodies, their personal fitness journeys. She pulled out her phone and showed me the gym's social media pages. Hundreds of photos of Ryan with happy families, testimonials about how he'd changed their lives, posts about integrity and commitment and family values. He's built his entire brand on being the guy who helps people become their best selves, the trustworthy family man who understands what really matters in life. And now he's the guy who commits medical fraud to secretly impregnate his ex-girlfriend while his wife is pregnant with their second child. I was starting to see where this was going. What do you need from me? Nothing illegal. Nothing that could get us in trouble. Just the truth, spread in the right places at the right times. Over the next hour, Julia laid out a plan that was both elegant and devastating. We weren't going to break any laws or do anything that could come back to bite us. We were simply going to make sure that Ryan's clients, Chelsea's coworkers, and everyone in our social circle knew exactly what kind of people they really were. The beautiful thing, Julia said as we prepared to leave, is that we don't have to lie about anything. We don't have to exaggerate or make things up. The truth is bad enough. That afternoon, I got a call from my friend Marcus, who worked with me at the custom car shop. Dude, what the hell is going on? Chelsea's been calling the shop looking for you. She sounds completely unhinged. It's a long story. Can you help me move some stuff out of the house this weekend? Of course. But seriously, what happened? I told him everything. Marcus listened in stunned silence. Holy shit, Drew. She actually tried to trick you into raising her ex's kid? That was the plan. And she thought you'd be okay with it? Apparently. Jesus, what kind of person does that? The kind of person who's about to learn some hard lessons about consequences. That evening, I got a text from Chelsea. Drew, please come home. We need to talk. I can fix this. I didn't respond. An hour later, the police want to interview me tomorrow. I'm scared. Still didn't respond. Another hour. I told my parents. They're furious. They want to talk to you. I turned off my phone. The next few days were a whirlwind of police interviews, lawyer consultations, and watching Chelsea's life implode in real time. The police interview was straightforward. Detective Mike Hann was professional and thorough. I provided the recording of Chelsea's confession, timeline details, and contact information for everyone involved. He confirmed that both Chelsea and Ryan were facing charges for conspiracy to commit medical fraud. This is actually more serious than people realize, Detective Hann explained. Medical fraud involving reproductive services can carry significant penalties. We're talking potential jail time, not just fines. Meanwhile, Julia was systematically dismantling Ryan's business empire with surgical precision. She started by posting a simple message on the gym's Facebook page. Due to recent personal circumstances involving my husband Ryan Morrison, I will be taking over all business operations at CrossFit Meadowbrook. effective immediately. Anyone with concerns about their membership should contact me directly. Julia Morrison, business manager. The post was vague enough to avoid legal issues, but specific enough to make people ask questions. And when people asked questions, Julia provided answers. Truthful, factual answers about her husband's recent activities. Within 48 hours, the gym had lost 30% of its membership. Chelsea, meanwhile, was dealing with her own professional crisis. Someone, I suspected Julia, though she never admitted it, had sent an anonymous tip to Chelsea's company's ethics hotline about an employee engaging in criminal behavior. HR launched an investigation immediately. "Drew, please call me back," Chelsea's voicemail said. "I got suspended from work pending an investigation. I don't understand how they found out." I did understand, and I thought it was beautiful. Marcus helped me move my remaining belongings out of the house that Saturday. Chelsea wasn't there. She was staying at her parents' house, apparently. But her friend Nicole was waiting for us. "Drew, this is insane," Nicole said as we loaded boxes into Marcus's truck. "You're destroying Chelsea's life over a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I stopped loading and turned to face her. "Nicole, she committed medical fraud. She was planning to lie to me for the rest of our lives about who fathered our child. What part of that is a misunderstanding? She was just trying to give you a beautiful baby. She was trying to give me someone else's baby and lie about it. There's a difference." Marcus shook his head. "Lady, your friend is facing criminal charges. This isn't some relationship drama. This is serious legal trouble. You don't understand," Nicole continued. "Chelsea's always wanted children so badly. She was just trying to make the best possible baby for your family. By committing felonies with her ex-boyfriend, it wasn't supposed to hurt anyone." I pulled out my phone and started recording. "Nicole, are you saying that you knew about Chelsea's plan to swap my sperm sample with her ex-boyfriend's sample?" Nicole's face went white. No, I didn't say that. Because if you knew about medical fraud and didn't report it, that could make you an accessory." "I have to go." Nicole practically ran to her car. Marcus watched her drive away. "I think she knew. I think Chelsea's been talking to her friends about this for months, and I think they all thought it was romantic instead of criminal." That evening, I got a call from Julia. "How's the move going?" "Almost done. How's the business destruction going?" "Better than expected. Ryan lost another 20 clients today. Apparently word is spreading through the mommy networks about what he did. Turns out married women don't like it when married men secretly father children with other women. Shocking. There's something else. I found out Rachel, the technician Chelsea bribed. She's talking to the police. Apparently she's willing to testify against both Chelsea and Ryan in exchange for a reduced sentence. That's good news for the prosecution. Very good news. But Drew, there's something you should know. Chelsea's been calling Ryan, trying to get him to take responsibility for everything. She's claiming she was manipulated, that the whole thing was his idea. I wasn't surprised. Chelsea had always been good at rewriting history when it suited her. How's Ryan taking that? About as well as you'd expect. He's furious. He's been telling people that Chelsea seduced him into it, that she was obsessed with having his baby. So they're turning on each other, like rats on a sinking ship. The following week, things escalated quickly. Someone, and I had my suspicions about who, created a neighborhood Facebook group post that went viral locally. PSA tokens. Be careful who you trust with your medical procedures. Some people in our community have been engaging in fertility fraud, paying technicians to swap samples and lying to their spouses about paternity. Just thought everyone should be aware that this kind of thing is happening right here in Meadowbrook Heights. The post didn't name names, but it didn't need to. In a community of 15,000 people, word spreads fast. Especially when the police investigation was public record and people started connecting dots. Chelsea's social media presence, which had been her pride and joy, became a liability overnight. Her Instagram posts about blessed life and perfect marriage were flooded with comments from people who now knew the truth. Is this the woman who tried to trick her husband with someone else's baby? Didn't she get arrested for medical fraud? I heard she stole money to bribe clinic workers. Chelsea deleted her social media accounts, but screenshots lived forever. Ryan's situation was even worse. His gym's Yelp page became a battleground. Would you trust a man who secretly fathers children behind his pregnant wife's back with your fitness goals? This guy has no integrity. How can he help you become your best self when he's lying to his own family? Avoid. Owner is facing criminal charges for medical fraud. Julia, meanwhile, was handling the business transition with remarkable professionalism. She sent a letter to all gym members, explaining that due to irreconcilable differences and criminal charges pending against my husband, she was taking over operations and Ryan would no longer be involved in day-to-day activities. The letter was a masterpiece of corporate diplomacy that somehow managed to be both completely professional and utterly devastating. Chelsea tried one last desperate gambit. She showed up at my hotel room on a Thursday night, crying and begging. "Drew, please. I know I made a mistake, but we can get through this. We can try again, the right way this time." "Chelsea, you're facing criminal charges. You committed medical fraud. You stole money from our account. You lied to me about the paternity of our future child. What exactly do you think we're going to get through?" "It was just a moment of weakness. I wasn't thinking clearly. You planned this for months. You coordinated with your ex-boyfriend. You researched which technician to bribe. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a criminal conspiracy. I love you. You love the idea of me. The idea of having a husband who doesn't ask too many questions while you live out your fantasies with other men." She slapped me. I didn't react. "You're destroying my life." "No, Chelsea. You destroyed your own life. I'm just making sure everyone knows what you really are." She left sobbing. I never saw her again in person. The next day, I got a call from Detective Hahn. "Mr. Callahan, I wanted to update you on the case. Both suspects have been formally charged. Mrs. Callahan with conspiracy to commit medical fraud and theft. Mr. Morrison with the same charges plus adultery under state law since he's married." "What kind of sentences are we looking at?" "If convicted, probably probation and community service for first-time offenders. But the real consequences are going to be civil. The clinic is considering a lawsuit for damages to their reputation. And of course, both suspects are now permanently blacklisted from fertility services nationwide." "What about the technician?" "Rachel pled guilty to accepting bribes and tampering with medical samples. She's cooperating fully with our investigation in exchange for a reduced sentence." After I hung up, I felt something I hadn't expected. Satisfaction. Not happiness exactly, but a sense that justice was being served. Chelsea and Ryan had made their choices, and now they were living with the consequences. 3 months later, I was settling into my new apartment when Julia called with interesting news. "Ryan's trying to restart his business in the next county over. New name, new location, but same scummy owner. How's that working out for him?" "Not well. Turns out criminal records are public, and the internet is forever. Every time he tries to establish himself somewhere new, people find out about his past. And Chelsea, last I heard, she was working at a call center in the city. Her parents cut her off financially after the arrest. Apparently, they're very concerned about the family reputation." "Good. There's something else. They're both going to be at the Meadowbrook Heights Fall Festival next weekend. Ryan's trying to show his face around town again, and Chelsea's apparently desperate to rebuild her reputation. The Fall Festival was the biggest social event of the year in our community. Everyone attended. Local businesses set up booths, families brought their kids, and the whole neighborhood came together for a day of food, games, and socializing. It was also the perfect venue for a final, public reckoning." "What did you have in mind?" I asked Julia. "Nothing illegal. Nothing we could get in trouble for. Just the truth. Presented in a very public way." "I'm listening." Julia's plan was elegant in its simplicity. The festival had a community bulletin board where people posted announcements, lost pet flyers, and local news. She suggested we post a simple, factual summary of the criminal case, along with photos of both defendants. "Just the facts," she said. "Names, charges, court dates, and a brief description of what they did. All public record information that anyone could look up if they wanted to." "That's actually brilliant. The best part is, we're not saying anything that isn't true. We're not editorializing or adding our opinions. We're just making sure people have access to factual information about members of their community." The morning of the festival, I printed out a simple flyer. Community safety notice. Chelsea Callahan and Ryan Morrison were arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit medical fraud, theft, and tampering with reproductive samples at Meadowbrook Fertility Clinic. The charges stem from a scheme where both defendants conspired to swap sperm samples during IVF procedures, with Mrs. Callahan paying clinic technician Rachel Torres $5,000 to facilitate the deception. Both defendants pled guilty and received probation. They are permanently banned from fertility services nationwide. Court records are available at the county courthouse. Case numbers 2023 CR 8847, and 2023 CR 8848. I made 50 copies and posted them on every bulletin board, telephone pole, and community notice area at the festival. Within an hour, the flyers were the talk of the event. People were taking photos with their phones, sharing the information on social media, and having animated discussions about the case. Chelsea showed up around noon with Nicole and another friend, clearly trying to make a public appearance to normalize her presence in the community. She was wearing a sundress and sunglasses, attempting to look casual and unbothered. The strategy backfired spectacularly. The moment people recognized her, conversations stopped. Parents pulled their children closer. Former friends crossed to the other side of the festival grounds to avoid her. I watched from a distance as Chelsea's carefully planned rehabilitation tour turned into a walk of shame. She lasted about 20 minutes before fleeing in tears. Ryan's appearance was even more disastrous. He showed up with some new girlfriend. Apparently, Julia had finalized their divorce the previous month, and tried to work the crowd like he was running for office. "Hey, good to see you. How's the family? Great weather for the festival, right?" But people weren't having it. The combination of the flyers, the criminal record, and the general community knowledge of what he'd done made him persona non grata. Vendors refused to serve him. Parents told their children to stay away from him. Former clients and friends gave him the cold shoulder. The breaking point came when he approached a group of his former gym members near the food trucks. "Hey guys, good to see some familiar faces." One of them, a guy named Tom, whose wife had been pregnant when the scandal broke, stepped forward. "Ryan, I think you should leave." "Come on, man. Can't we let bygones be bygones?" "Bygones?" Tom's voice was getting louder, drawing attention. "You committed fraud involving reproductive medicine while your wife was pregnant. You think that's just bygones? Look, the whole thing got blown out of proportion. You helped another woman steal her husband's sperm and replace it with yours. How exactly is that blown out of proportion?" A crowd was gathering now. Ryan's new girlfriend looked mortified. "You need to understand, Chelsea was very persuasive. So you're blaming the woman now? Real classy, Ryan." "That's not what I meant. What you meant," Tom interrupted, "is that you're a liar and a fraud who can't take responsibility for his actions. You destroyed 2 marriages, committed multiple felonies, and now you want everyone to just forget about it because it's inconvenient for you." The crowd murmured agreement. Ryan's face was getting red. "You don't understand the whole situation." "I understand enough. I understand that you're not welcome here. This is a public event, and we're the public, and we're telling you to leave." Ryan looked around at the hostile faces surrounding him. His girlfriend was already walking away, clearly wanting no part of the confrontation. "Fine," he said. "But this isn't over." "Yeah, it is," Tom replied. "It's been over since the day you got arrested." Ryan stalked off, and the crowd dispersed, buzzing with conversation about the confrontation. I found Julia near the apple cider stand, watching the whole thing with a satisfied smile. "Think they'll try to come back to town anytime soon?" I asked. "I doubt it. Ryan's ego can't handle public humiliation, and Chelsea's too smart to keep subjecting herself to this kind of treatment." "So what's next for you?" "The gym's doing better than ever, actually. Turns out people really like the idea of a fitness center run by someone with actual integrity. I'm thinking about expanding to a second location. And personally, I'm focusing on raising my kids and building a business. I don't have time for drama or revenge anymore. This was just closure." I understood that. The past few months had been about more than just punishing Chelsea and Ryan. They'd been about reclaiming my sense of self-respect, proving that actions have consequences, and making sure that 2 people who thought they could manipulate and deceive others learned otherwise. As I walked through the festival, I realized that I felt genuinely happy for the first time in years. Not because I'd destroyed 2 people's lives, but because I'd refused to let them destroy mine. Chelsea had thought she could trick me into raising another man's child, and I'd never know the difference. Ryan had thought he could secretly father children with his ex-girlfriend while staying married to his pregnant wife. Both of them had thought they were smarter than everyone else, that they could manipulate the system and the people around them without consequences. They were wrong. The truth had a way of coming out, and when it did, it hit like a hurricane. Their reputations were destroyed, their careers were ruined, their marriages were over, and their futures were permanently altered. All because Chelsea wanted blue eyes. As I drove home from the festival that evening, I thought about the conversation that had started this whole mess. Chelsea sitting at our kitchen table, nervously explaining how she'd committed medical fraud because she wanted our baby to have blue eyes like her ex-boyfriend. Interesting choice, I'd said. It really had been interesting. Interesting how someone could be so focused on something as superficial as eye color that they'd destroy their entire life to get it. Interesting how two people could convince themselves that elaborate deception and criminal fraud were romantic gestures. Interesting how quickly a carefully constructed life could collapse when the foundation was built on lies. But most interesting of all was how satisfying it felt to watch karma work its magic. Chelsea and Ryan had made their choices, and now they were living with the consequences. They'd wanted to play games with other people's lives, and they'd learned the hard way that some games have very serious rules. I pulled into my apartment complex parking lot and sat in my car for a moment, looking up at the stars. Tomorrow I would start the next chapter of my life. No more lies, no more deception, no more wondering if the person I loved was secretly betraying me. Just the truth, finally, after all these months. It was a beautiful thing.